Jesus said to Mother, I'm in the poor. And she held this little baby Jesus. She found baby Jesus, little baby Jesus. And that little baby Jesus was me.
Hello, and welcome to Kept in Her Heart, where we talk about all things faith-related. I'm your host, Jenny Fuchs. Today, Patrick Norton joins us. He had his beginnings in India, where he was held by Saint Mother Teresa herself, and he's had a very interesting life since then, and he's here to share it with us today. Welcome, Patrick.
Well, thank you for having me, Jenny. And well, my story begins in India. One of the bishops asked Mother, well, why can't you come to Bombay? We have poor people in Bombay. And the Bishop of Bombay said, Mother Teresa said, okay, we'll open up the second one. So they opened up the second missionary charity in Bombay. It was in Byculla. And so my mother, I was an infant, and my mother couldn't take care of me. And so she put me there, hoping the sisters from the convent maybe would come by and pick me up and take care of me. So Mother Teresa and the sisters happened to come by, and they were the hands of Mother Teresa. She picked me up, and I don't recognize because I was an infant. And here she's holding the little baby Jesus, because Jesus said to Mother, I'm in the poor. And she held this little baby Jesus. She found baby Jesus, little baby Jesus, and that little baby Jesus was me. And I know Mother must have smiled at me, and I know I was crying and needed food and something to take care of me. And so Mother took care of me and fed me, and I was baptized into the church, and they named me Patrick because they didn't know who the parents were. There was no document, nothing like that. And so after they took care of me in Byculla in the orphanage, and then certain age, they transferred me to the St. Joseph Nursery in Byculla. And there I was taken care of, I think, until the age of 5. And they transferred me to the big boys' orphanage and in Bombay, in Dadar. And it was called Our Lady's Home. And then in 1964, Pope Paul VI came and visited that orphanage. And he knelt before each boy and gave them Holy Communion and had breakfast. I know I wasn't around because it was a little later on, we heard of the story and everything. And that's how the orphanage was very well known. And so he had breakfast, and it made world news. Everybody knew about the orphanage, and he donated money to expand it and get in more boys in there. So there were 250 of us. And it was just the boys' home. There were no, they didn't have, some of them didn't have families. Like me, I didn't have both parents. Some of them had one. And so anyway, so I was put in the orphanage and in India. And so while I was growing up in the orphanage, we didn't have a lot to eat. It was in the 1960s, late 1960s, and I should say early 1960s. And the food was very scarce there, but we had Mass said 365 days. And then we prayed the rosary every evening at 7 o'clock. They had schools there, we can go to classes. And we didn't have much. There were days that we had no food. And I remember that day they said, let's pray the rosary. Let's pray 2 rosaries. And we did. And the food was coming from the United States and West Germany. And I remember we had powder milk, eggs that were, dry powder stuff, that we ate, because that's all they can donate. And so while I was growing up, also we didn't have toys to play with. So sometimes we would go to the building right across, and there was an apartment building, and those people knew that we would come and look for broken toys or coins or anything. And so they would throw stuff out so we can pick it up and take it home to the orphanage. And some days we would go there, we would find money and quarters. And one day I came across of a piece of paper. It says USA on it. And I cleaned it. I didn't know where this place was. And so I took it to the priest and I said, Father, look what I found. He said, oh, you won't go there. That's America. You'll never go there. Throw it away. So I kept it anyway, and I had rice. Rice is a glue, actually. It's a natural glue. If you cook the rice, it's very sticky, and you can stick to it. So that's what I did. I stuck it. I slept on the floor. Not everybody had bed. So I stuck it under the bed, and I would pray, because and I would say, Lord, I want to go to that place some days. And sometimes food was very scarce. Sometimes my homework was food. We ate the eraser and pencils. It's true. And, because they could only give us so much. There were days we just didn't have any food, The orphanage just got started and everything. And but there were also good things that happened in the orphanage. We learned our Catholic faith. There were 2 priests and 2 nuns over there that took care of us. The nuns did the sewing of the clothes, and the priest said Mass every day. And it's hard work on them. So, they understand. Then every Sunday, I remembered some of the boys had one of their parents come and visit them. So it was once a month they're allowed to do that. I had nobody, So I would watch them like this, and I said, I wish I could have one of my family. And one time I sang this song when I was, because I heard this song one time, and I sang this song when I was alone. I said, I'm nobody's child, I'm nobody's child, nobody wants me, I'm nobody's child. And then, Lewis, my friend Lewis, he was my best friend, and he would call me and say, Pat, come. And he would invite 4 of us. And his mother got 1 apple, and they would split that apple in 4. And I said, Lewis, no, your mother got it for you. And it was the only apple Lewis' mother, And then later on, I asked Lewis, my best friend, I said, Lewis, why did you do that? Why did you split that apple in 4? I said, does your mother have work? No, my mother's a beggar. She begs on the street, and then she brings only the 1 apple she can afford. And I was so heartbroken. And yet Lewis was so kind to, give me that apple. And later on, he passed away, and they said he was very kind-hearted. And Lewis taught me how to be kind to people, no matter who they are. And so in my whole life, I wanted to be kind. So while I was in the orphanage, there was a war between India and Pakistan. And we were at war with Pakistan. I remember they told all the kids to be outside of the orphanage. And we were frightened because we didn't know the bomb was going to hit us or whatever, because it was pitch dark. We had to turn the lights off. The sirens came on. It was 7 o'clock in the evening, and it started to get pitch dark. We can see the moon and the stars. And I said, Lord, forget about the war. Look how beautiful your world is. You know what he said to me? I'm going to bring you to one of the greatest nations on this earth. And I'm sitting here talking to each one of you. And so my dream came true. The priest came up to me and he says, Pat, you're going to America. I said, really? He said, you're going to have a family. I knew my prayers were answered. And all the boys in that orphanage said to me, oh, Pat, remember me. Don't forget, but send sweets and candies. And I felt so compassionate that they too can find a family somewhere for them. So I was feeling sad for them too. But they said, Pat, remember me when you go. Even I miss my best friend, Lewis, who was so kind to me at the orphanage. And at that time, I end up at the airport in Bombay. It was 12 o'clock. I'll never forget, at night. And we were headed to Germany. There was the first stop, and then to the United States. And I remembered when I landed in New York, I saw these tall buildings and my new family that came. My dad had 9 of his own and 5 adopted, well, including us now. 5 adopted, 2 from India, 2 2 from Vietnam and 1 from Hong Kong, and he had 9. And he was Irish. And so he adopted my brother Martin, but he's not my real brother, but we became brothers as we were adopted into the United States. And when I looked at America, I remembered I looked at all the buildings, I said, look how blessed we are to be here in America, to have food, clothing, shelter, friends, and family. And I said, God, most of all, your love for this country, America. And what a gift to bring me here. And you said one day, you told me, one day you'll bring me to one of the greatest nations. I'm right here, Lord. And how blessed we are to have our Catholic faith, to be living our Catholic faith. And the food that we didn't have, and how now it's so available for me to eat when I'm hungry. And so anyway, when my new family took me to Fairfield, Connecticut, my father was a judge. He adopted 5 and he had 9 of his own. His name was Judge John Henry Norton. And my mom was Marjorie Norton. And I have 6 brothers and 7 sisters from not having any family. And God just gave me this wonderful family. And I had a good time with my family, and I still keep in touch with them. And anyway, when people are wondering how I came to Minnesota. Well, after my dad passed away, I only known him for 8 years. And I was heartbroken, and my mom saw that in me. And so my mom said, Pat, why can't you take a trip to Medjugorje? And I thought, I've never heard of that. But she said, Our Lady's been appearing. And I remember looking back at the orphanage and how much I love Our Lady. That orphanage was dedicated to Our Lady of Fatima. And the only mother I knew in my life at the orphanage when I was alone was Our Lady. And the Pope Paul VI said this to us, to all the children over there. Pope Paul VI said, you know, God put you here because he wants you to study hard and obey your superior. And also he wants you to have a good life out there. And he said, wherever you go, our Blessed Mother will always be with you. And I thought, wow, isn't that nice? And so anyway, I thought of Our Lady there, you know, in Medjugorje. Now, my mom was telling me of Medjugorje, and I thought, okay. So I told the Blessed Mother, well, if I could have off this week, I'll make a trip to Medjugorje. So I did. Everything worked out in a week. Usually it takes a month before they can set all this up, but this was only a week. And so I went to Medjugorje, and I ended up at St. James Church in Yugoslavia, in Croatia. And when I was there, it was so peaceful, and I was just drinking water at the water fountain. All of a sudden, I heard this audible voice. It sounded like a woman voice, and I turned around and I said, hey, you sound American.